when you watch the NFL and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then you're like, dang, this guy just got traded. He just got cut.
Yeah.
I just saw him sign a 2-year deal, and it's just like nothing's guaranteed until it says guarantee. So
Yeah, exactly. It's a crazy industry, and
yeah,
I think over the last couple of years, it feels like the industry sort of opened up more towards international talent and stuff like that. Where
yeah,
years ago, when I was knocking on doors, it was a little bit of a different story, you know. So
hmm
as we discussed, you kind of make peace with that idea that maybe you were the trailblazer and you kind of opened some opportunities up for other people.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so great to see you progress and really do well. So yeah, who is Carl? Who's Carl Meyer?
And just a South African South African boy who had a dream of playing professional rugby and playing for the Springboks. You know, as every kid grows up in South Africa, when you can walk, talk, and run, and you
Yeah.
can hold a rugby ball, it's I want to be a Springbok.
Listen, how
Uh,
old do you have to be to give up on that dream? Is 36 too old?
hey, look at Dion Fourie.
Hey, he's from
The
my town. Maybe it's in my blood.
it's you know people have that sort of stigma, and in sport, as we've progressed with how athletes are looking and performing physically at a younger age, you know, you obviously have a greater time of development for the youth than someone who's a little bit older, but that doesn't mean that um, you can't get an opportunity. Like I only ended up getting my professional opportunity at 24, and in some cases, like in South Africa, if you haven't made it by 24, they're like, maybe it's time
Yeah,
to find something else to do,
yeah,
because
almost like there's a reason why you haven't made it by 24. Yeah,
exactly, it's again, it's there's so much talent in South Africa, and we're world number one in the world for a reason, because
yeah,
of the competition and talent and all those different types of things. So, but again, you take those setbacks, you learn from them, and you gain experience. And how you utilize that experience to then progress in your next sort of stage of training will then set you apart from the guys who are still coming through and making mistakes that you made or previously that now you don't make.
yeah,
Because at the highest level, it's all about trying to eliminate as many mistakes as possible. If you're able to operate under pressure and not make certain mistakes that a youngster might be making because he's still learning that type of stuff, like you give yourself that opportunity, put your foot in the door, and then it just comes down to executing
wow,
that skill set on the stage. And then once you know, solidify yourself in that way, you gain that respect, and
yeah,
um, coaches begin to trust you at that age.
yeah. That's
Um,
it's almost as though you're describing some form of ProForm kicking. It's a reduction in variables. It's becoming more efficient, and
yeah.
you only get it when you get older. That's the sad thing. Like if I knew what I knew now at 20, my life
hmm
would have been totally different. But of course,
hmm
you can always say that in hindsight. But just from a performance point of view, understanding that less is more. I never got that. I always thought
Yeah.
I need to work harder. I need to train more. But when you've got the right technique and the right form, then less is more. More quality reps over wasted time on the field and just kicking
Exactly.
and having all this data to process in your brain. But anyway, we're jumping ahead of the curve here. So you come from South Africa. Are we rivals? You come from which side of the world?
Peter Maritzburg, KwaZulu Natal.
No, it's
Uh,
okay.
Went to Maritzburg College. Some South African great fly-offs all came out of there. That's why I probably also wanted to play fly-off.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So World Cup winning fly-offs. Um, played out there. Started off my career as a fly-off, and then moved into inside center as I started to get a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. And then because I was able to kick the ball as far as I could, some coaches wanted to experiment that at 15, and then that's where I ended up playing the bulk of my rugby career
Yeah.
at 15 because of that.
Yeah, 15 was also my preferred position because I didn't have to pass too much. So, you know, Maritzburg. Okay, so KZN boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm from Limpopo, so I've got nothing to brag about. Absolutely nothing. I come out of probably the worst rugby school in the country, Capricorn High School. I think our claim to fame is John Mametso, who played for the Bulls back in the day.
Yes,
so,
yes,
so that's about it. But Petersburg, I mean, growing up in Petersburg, we had some legends. I mean, we got Victor Matfield and we got
yeah.
Dion Ferry, both coming out of PHS. I think maybe a couple of other guys. But so Maritzburg boys, obviously that's royalty rugby in South Africa. And then what did you do after school? Did you go straight to the States, or did you play in South Africa first?
No, right, straight out of school, I was in the Sharks Academy for 2 years. I was in the Sharks under 19 age group, and then uh, ended up going to the UKZN University of KwaZulu-Natal to play varsity cup, varsity shield rugby,
Okay.
because I wanted to get my studies in at the same time. And then was sort of knocking on the door in under 20, under 21s, Vodacom Cup, but never really, got the opportunity that I felt like I should have gotten ahead of certain people. So I started to think, okay, how can I find an opportunity overseas somewhere? And a friend of mine, I got in touch with Richard Diaga, who runs an exchange program. He used to be involved with the Sharks, I think, years back, and now he runs his own exchange program. And we got connected, and he got me an opportunity to go play in Wales. And that's where it all started for me. I went to Wales and joined a semi-pro club there called Ebervale. And after a season with them, got noticed by the Dragons in the Pro 12 or Pro 14 at the time that it was called then. Now it's the URC. And then that's where I finally got my first professional opportunity and ended up staying with them for 4 years. Then came home for about a year. I had some visa issues with my new contract signing. I signed a contract with Cardiff, and then had some sort of visa issues, and then that fell itself through. And then I was like, okay, well, now what's the thing? Maybe look to go play in France or Japan or one of those things. And then the agent I was working with, Mike Good, he had a guy playing here in New Orleans, and he, funny enough, had a minicamp tryout with the Saints after his maybe second season with the team. So I was like, oh, okay, America, the rugby's busy developing here. That'd be an awesome thing to sort of be a part of and go and experience. So
Yeah.
got offered a contract to come here for 3 years, and then that's initially when football kind of planted its seed through actually our rugby GM, funny enough. And then that's how I ended up here in the States.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about visa issues. If I had to write a autobiography of my playing career, I think it would be titled "Visa Issues." But yeah, people have no idea how difficult it is to be a South African and pursue these big things in other countries. I think
Yeah.
Europe's a lot easier, but the Americas is especially difficult. Canada was definitely a challenge, and obviously
Yeah.
US as well. You're sort of on the back foot from the start. You're competing against the best athletes in the world, but you also have a ton of hoops to jump through, and
Yeah.
it's nearly impossible. It's so
Uh-huh.
so. Okay, so you ended up in the States. What was the first team that you played for there?
I joined NOLA Gold Rugby here in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and was there with them for 3 years when like I say, our GM kind of brought it up because the seasons are different here. It's like a 6 month on, 6 month off, and the season just started now, so it ends. It starts when football ends, so it doesn't sort of compete. So he had the idea. I was like, obviously, because I'm able to kick as well as I do, he was like, maybe you can try and do sort of both. He's like, we can see if we could get you a workout here, um, and if you'd be interested in that. And I was like, oh, like I've watched a bit of football, but I was like, yeah, it's kicking. I love to kick. Yeah, I'm gonna go try it. I went and bought it. I went and bought a football. I think it was the first football I ever kicked. It was as I was preparing to leave South Africa to come to America. That's when this whole sort of situation first presented itself. I went to Sportsman's Warehouse and got those the composite ball.
The concert
And
one.
and I was like, okay, well, this is a lot smaller. The
Yeah.
sweet spot's a lot smaller. I was like, okay, now I better kick it off the ground.
Yeah.
Let me see how this sort of plays itself out. And in the beginning, I was terrible. And I was like, okay, I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe this is not as easy as a transition as I thought it might be.
Yeah.
But I got the hang of it after, a good couple reps, a couple days getting into it. And so I was like, okay, cool, this could be an opportunity. Gotcha. End of 2019, going into the 2020 season, COVID happened, everything shut down.
Yeah.
And then our rugby season got cancelled about 5 games in. So I was like, okay, well, when things started to open up, I was like, maybe I'll just continue to keep kicking footballs and just play around with that, because I love the kick. That was one thing in South Africa and just in my life. Like that was like my place to go to shut away everything else. Like I just felt like I was in my own little world, and I would kick for hours, 2 hours at a time, just go and kick and just be in my own little world. So I loved the kick. And so when COVID sort of started opening itself back up, I started, kicking a bit more footballs in the off season. And I had a friend who initially brought up Mike Hollis and ProForm to me, because he was here in NOLA, and he was part of the rugby club here that was associated with NOLA Gold, the men's rugby club. And he was sort of and he kind of, I think he had maybe worked with Mike a little bit before, and he does some of his own rugby kicking. And then he showed me some of the stuff, and then actually told me about you. And I was like, okay, saw some of your stuff, saw you kicking, and I was like, man, kick a ball really well through this ProForm, and it's all football related. So I was like, well, let me see, fellow South African, let me see what this is all about, and like how I can better understand and learn kicking a football. Like, is there that much difference from kicking footballs to rugby balls, and what that kind of looks like? And then, yeah, I believe that's when we first got in contact, and I first really started learning a bit more and trying to understand what ProForm is all about.
Yeah, and I think it's actually it's unbelievable that the love for kicking and being sort of obsessed with the details of it and so forth can connect people like us across the world. Never met you before, and
That's right.
yes, yeah. So just incredible how the love for this thing that we've done since we were kids connects us from all the way across the world. Never met each other before, but screw the semantics. When we started talking kicking, it was just like, it was, and I was still trying to figure out how to coach this to people, this format, So we were doing like Zoom calls, and I was looking at your film and trying to explain it as far as I understood it, and to a large degree, Mike coached me the same. I mean, we still speak at least once a week. I have a question for him. He tells me that I'm not balanced or whatever, like or that I could do this thing better or whatever the case may be. So yeah, pretty cool. And yeah, so as a, and you see this online quite a lot. There's quite which is healthy, but there's quite the rivalry between rugby fans and American football. They're like, guys wear pads, it's a sissy sport and all this.
Yeah.
that's open for interpretation. I think football is just as, if not harder than rugby. It's a pretty tough sport still, with helmets and pads and all. But let's
Yeah.
get into the details of kicking a football, because I mean, as two guys that grew up playing rugby, loving kicking, and to a large degree, sort of almost dedicating your life to this sport, playing rugby,
Yeah.
almost as a consequence of having the opportunity to kick in this game,
Hmm.
transitioning to a sport which is purely kicking. What did you find are the differences? Why, if you do believe so, why is kicking a football technically more difficult? Why is it more of a precision sport? And I think lastly, like, what is it that specifically more what we are teaching and pro form kicking and
Hmm.
our entire philosophy? Why is it a no-brainer for rugby players to learn these concepts, and why haven't they? Why do you think they haven't? I have my own answers to this, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So, you know, like you say, kicking is really like an obsession, especially the guys who love the kick and do it at the highest level. You find it is such an obsession. And growing up, I just kind of looked to other rugby players who are doing it at the highest level, and I, firstly started trying to mimic their kicking styles.
Like we
The
do.
Dan Carters, the Johnny Wilkinsons, um, all those top kickers, and I was trying to figure out, like, and for me, when I kicked the best I was feeling the most comfortable. So certain things, I would try and sort of break it down. You'd take some video footage, and you could see the differences from a good kick to a bad kick. And what I learned from transitioning from rugby to football is, like, rugby ball is way more forgiving than a football. You have so much more surface area to kick.
Yeah,
So your miss hit could technically still be a good kick because there's still so much surface area to kick. And technically, you can still not be as efficient but still kick the ball efficiently, if that kind of makes sense.
yeah,
Because of the sweet spot is a lot greater.
yeah. And the
Um,
ball, the ball itself, the material of the ball, it wants
e-
to be kicked, whereas a football wants to be thrown.
exactly. So when I transitioned that, it was like it really did showcase to me, like, where technically I needed some adjustments, because I couldn't just naturally, the way I was kicking, kick the football, especially off the ground. And I had slowly started to sort of figure it out, and it kind of just came naturally to me. I stayed a lot more straighter and through the ball than a lot of guys do, who tend to, the word that I've been hearing a lot is try and steer the ball.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you want to,
Guide
you
it.
see, yeah, you you line yourself up, and it looks like your target is to your left, so you think you have to kind of use your foot to steer it to come around. That's why so many guys have
Yeah,
a draw in their kick, because if you look at their foot position, it's finishing to come around to try and finish at the target instead of just kicking,
yeah,
up and through that ball. And as I, started working with ProForm, and it just made so much more sense to me when I watched film of you and Mike and all the guys that were actually, doing that type of stuff mechanically. It looked so much more fluid and effortless and efficient. And I was like, well, that's what you want as a kicker. You want to try and eliminate as many little obstacles, like,
there,
so many guys that you see is you take one or two steps forward or one or two steps to the side. And, if you feel comfortable doing that, like, that's okay. And people become, if you kick a certain way for so many years, you can become good at kicking the ball
that.
inefficiently, but kick it well.
Yes,
And then
exactly.
it looks like, he's like, man, that's the type of kicking style I need to adopt.
Yeah.
But he's been kicking the ball for 15, 20 years that way. So he's figured out how to manipulate
Yeah,
those
let me
type of
let me
things.
let me try to imitate this thing where I have to do a million different things to make it work. Yeah.
Mhm.
But like you said, like I guess the phrase is like practice makes perfect. I suppose, if you practice
Yeah,
inefficient things, you can get good at inefficient things.
yeah.
There's so much more potential out there. And I just want to connect with one thing that you were saying about just feeling like the target or the goalpost is to the left of you, and that
Hmm.
it creates this is where the main problem is that this that not just rugby kickers but a lot of American football coaches teach different things, and but I see it split into two, right? It's as though there's a section of the industry that's trapped in this paradigm of thinking. They can't get out of this paradigm of thinking where to make the ball go, whereas
Hmm.
where we are, it's more of the ball is actually the target, and
Hmm.
if you understand that, then that's the only way that you can get this efficient at kicking. You cannot
Yeah.
do it being in that other paradigm. It's just not possible.
Hmm.
You can see it through, even if you watch YouTube videos of kicking coaches and they talk about stuff like an aggressive left arm or rodeo arm or whatever they call that, and a J
Uh-huh.
shape and a C shape. They talk all these nice keywords, but it's all in that paradigm. It's all in that
Yes.
paradigm. It's all like things that you're trying to do to counter the thing that you're kind of doing already. You
Yeah.
know?
That I remember I was blessed enough to be a part of the Investec Academy back in South Africa, where we had like 3 weeks in Johannesburg with everyone. I think there was like 2 players per position, and we had like a full like immersion of thing. And I can't remember who we were um, kicking out there with. And again, it was that aggressive arm across the body to counteract the foot coming up so that you would stay straight.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was like kind of like that you want to crunch to create power. And you think, and like, you like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about it, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. You want to like explode,
Yeah.
but then you sit yourself in such a small position, and then you limit the amount of power and efficiency that can actually move through your leg because you shorten your
Yeah.
follow through.
Exactly. And
You know,
or you're doing all of that not because that's the best way to kick the ball. It's that is being done as a counter to the symptoms of this paradigm of trying to steer the ball. It's not
yeah,
because it kicks the ball better. It's all like to stop an over rotation, and you're
exactly.
crunching because you're bringing that left arm across the body and you're closing up, and so eventually you're just kicking the ball with your leg. You're not really incorporating the entire body. But
Yeah.
okay, listen, we're going to get lost in this because we we could talk about kicking technique for days at a time. I can't even remember what the last question was that I asked you, but I'm pretty sure oh yeah, it was your transition from kicking rugby balls to
Yes.
footballs. But I think you've made the point that it is you still have that those two different paradigms, but
Hmm.
once you're in this sort of pro form paradigm of thinking the ball's the target, and that sort of opens you up to all of these possibilities to be more effective and efficient and powerful and so forth. But it's still very difficult to kick a football. It's
Hmm.
not easy. It's
No.
very difficult. Now you've gone from playing rugby as a pro, and then you've transitioned to learning how to kick footballs. You've worked with myself and with Mike from ProForm Kicking, and you've also done some
Yeah.
time with Nick Novak.
Yeah.
Also has a lot of the same sort of ideas. And then you got signed to the BC Lions, and it's kind of ironic.
Yes.
I think it was just before I had met you. I went to Vancouver to try out with the BC Lions, and yeah, well,
That's awesome. Yeah.
needless to say, it didn't work out that particular season.
Hmm.
But you got signed. Did you get signed in the global draft, or were you signed as a free agent?
I got signed in the global draft last year, so it was, and at the time I didn't know anything about the CFL. I was solely focusing on trying to get into either the UFL or, and again, this is just me. I was trying to get into the NFL. Me, guy with no experience. I was like, just want a coach to have
Thinking,
a look at me. just want to have a coach to look at me
Yeah, just
because I believe I have the skill set and the talent. So it was
yeah.
like, and then I got connected with Nick, and now we've been working together. And he told me, he was like, man, listen, I have a showcase next month. I want you to be in it. And it was like a CFL showcase. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. If you can get me in, I'm in. This is why I turned down re-signing another couple of years playing rugby at 30, 32 to go and try play American football professionally. Like that makes no sense in itself. First of all,
Yeah.
to do it this late in your career, never having kicked a football, like I'm competing against guys who've kicked footballs their whole life.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. So went into the showcase, punted and kicked well. I didn't kick as well as I wanted to do field goal wise, but I had a great day punting, and then got drafted in March of last year, and then had my first professional season this past season with the BC Lions, and now going into year 2.
Epic.
So excited.
So epic. Carl, it's such an incredible story. It rivals Henry's story. I'm sure you know of Henry.
Yeah.
One of your rival kickers, who's also South African at the Saskatchewan Roughriders, or actually, I think he released himself from his contract to also pursue NFL opportunities and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But what a small world, right? I mean, 2 South African guys that we've worked with have both signed contracts in the CFL as professional kickers, not rugby players, but your job is to kick a ball and to punt.
Yeah.
I walked those same hallways and spent time in that same gym and kicked on that same training field. BC is a really cool place, or Vancouver is a really cool place.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's by far the best stadium in the CFL.
Oh, 100%. hands down.
So it's just sort of like things are coming full circle, and again, none of this stuff that I'm talking about, and I find myself recently sort of screaming this from the mountaintops, because I know how effective it is. It's not that I think I'm so clever. It's just that it's so beneficial, and it's a no-brainer for guys to adopt these ideas and these concepts, especially in South Africa, as we move forward into even more of a modern age of rugby. Why not adopt something that's going to improve your kicking wholesale? It's not just goal, it's everything, right? So okay, so heading into your second season at the BC Lions, obviously then you got re-signed, which is probably the most difficult thing to do, to go from your rookie season and then to get re-signed again. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's such a blessing, and I'm just grateful the way God's been working in my life. Is just to never have been involved in that type of environment, to getting the opportunity to be in that environment, and then still to be able to perform in my first ever full season in a helmet, pads, understanding the scheme, the what that looks like with the snap,
and the operation,
the coverages, the operation time, the hang time, the distance, the location, all these different sort of things. Yeah. For my first time ever doing, like it was such a blessing to have been in that environment and been able to be like that, because now I understand a lot more of what's expected of me. And now going into this second season, I'm able to attack this off season in an actual strategic way, because I know whereas before I was just like, I'm just going to kick bombs and then surely they're going to sign me. If I kick the ball, a big ball, if I kick it consistently well, and then you realize there's all these little different nuances, and then you've got to figure out how to utilize and kick a smaller ball with a smaller sweet spot, which you have to be more technically sound with, because it's very much unforgiving. When you kick it poorly, you kick it poorly.
Yeah, you can't shank a rugby ball like you can shank a football. It's the worst. And I think the thing that we're sort of speaking about, and ProForm, we talk about this a lot, in the balls, the target, and efficiency and mechanics and all this stuff. Like, every kicking coach talks about those types of things, and it's kind of difficult with all that noise out there. But when you talk about the football having less forgiveness and the sweet spot is smaller, and there's all of these, and also the operation, like it's difficult
Yeah,
enough to kick the ball well off sticks or off a tee, but then to do it, in a situation where it almost feels like you don't know where the ball is because you're approaching, the ball's
yeah,
not even there yet, and so um, you can say that you got to work harder and you got to spend more time in your kicking, but again, if you're working on the wrong stuff, then you're just getting good at wrong stuff, and
yeah,
that's what I'm seeing across the rugby industry is that. Especially at the Springboks, there's so much talent and the young guys coming through. They're they're clearly working on the wrong stuff. They're still stuck in that paradigm, and we need to get them out of there. That's I've made it my life's goal to do that. Why would you, if you were in that position, why would you, um, let's say, for the lack of a better way to describe it, why would you think it makes sense to employ, let's say, a director of kicking and standardize a kicking technique across the grassroots, maybe even up through high school, and embed this in the system, and teach this to high school coaches and to teachers and to fathers and to boys in the township and so on and so forth. Like, um, do you think that that is a good idea?
I definitely think that, like I say, when I grew up, you didn't have kicking coaches, or you don't have anyone to really guide and teach you. You look to guys who are doing it professionally, or guys who have done it, or who kick well, to now try and find that. Like, I think it's such a untapped potential within South African sport, especially because with rugby, with football, like the kickers in football accumulate the most points. Like, even though they get the most grief and like why they're playing the sport and all these different things, people don't understand
They don't
like
understand. Yeah.
how vital it is to accumulate points. And same thing in rugby. Like rugby, I know from just playing games, like when the momentum's not going your way, and you have an opportunity just to get some points back on the board, or stop the momentum and change the momentum,
Mm.
um, like how vital kicking is, whether it's a 3 points or a 50-22 now, that gives you that opportunity to go from the defensive to the offensive and just change that whole moment. So like, if you're able to consistently kick good balls, like, you put yourself and your team in a much better position to then either continue driving momentum or changing momentum. And I think South African kids, so many talented kids are out there and who kick a ball really well, but just don't have the guidance or
Yeah.
someone to help teach and navigate. And I think a lot of people, especially when a new idea is introduced or a new kicking style is introduced, are very hesitant, because it's something that's it's become the norm, and it's been taught at the highest level. So people think it's the right way. And I think people just need to like take a step back and go, okay, yes, there's a more efficient way of kicking, but don't think that you're gonna have to be identical to someone else kicking. Like, everyone's kicking style is not going to look exactly the same, but the philosophies and the implementation of certain things,
Yeah.
everyone can and needs to utilize in their kicking if they want to be more efficient and gain
Yeah.
more power, more accuracy, more consistency. Like, I think
Yeah. And
I've seen it myself. Sorry, I've
no.
seen it myself at the youngest, like kids who don't kick well consistently, but kick well every now and then, like, get discouraged and then kind of just stop kicking because they think they're not good enough, or they think they don't have the talent to it. Whereas if they understood, like, it's just mechanical stuff and that can be changed, and it can be made simple. I think that's the key word, is like
Yeah.
simplicity. Like,
Simplicity. Yeah.
there's so much, like you said, there's so much
Noise.
step
Yeah.
back here, step back here. Well, like, you think you have to do all these things to get to where you want to get to anyway. Why do you want to
Yeah.
maximize the
Variables.
yeah, the variables or the opportunity to make an error in your
Yeah.
kicking and expect to get the same outcome every time. Whereas if you can find your right line, your right thing, and you just consistently hit that, the
Yeah.
chance of you hitting a bad ball is way less
Yeah.
than when you're having to take 5 steps back and then you're going to still take 2 steps forward, then another step back. Like, how consistent is those steps going to be on a regular basis?
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's the whole concept. If you turn before you get to the ball, you change the location of the ball relative to you, and it becomes an athletic feat to find the ball.
Yes,
You're not kicking it with your full potential. And
exactly.
this is the opportunity, is that if something like this would be implemented, and there's the standardized method across the grassroots levels, primary school levels, and so forth, it's an opportunity, or it would take that the chances of you being a exceptional fly off with average kicking ability, it would eliminate.
Hmm.
Everyone would have exceptional kicking ability because they would be learning a technique that produces that, and then it's really a question of how good they play rugby. It's kind of like golf. Golf figured out these exact things that we're talking about
Hmm.
almost a century ago. If you look at a silhouette of all the top 20, 30 golfers in the world, it'd be hard to tell them apart. It's because they all have the exact